because now I want to talk to you about how the mayor has failed economically in his mismanagement of all of his departments, whether it comes to the TfL, to transport in general, to police, to fire, to his green initiatives, to the housing. It's all failure after failure after failure. And you can see this headline here coming straight from the BBC, and I'll read it out for you. Boris Johnson blames London mayor for TfL bankruptcy before COVID-19. Before COVID. This is not talked about. This institution was going bankrupt before the pandemic ever happened. And you'll see this next headline as well, and I'll read it out for you. Mayor Sadiq Khan is accused of mismanaging TfL financing as he demands more government money to prop up public transport in London just months after a £1.6 billion coronavirus bailout. And the truth is this: the TfL has gone nearly bankrupt twice last year alone. In a couple months, he's going to be asking for billions more in bailouts. And that article I just showed goes on to say, quote, over the past 4 years, Sadiq Khan has lost control of TfL's finances, lost control of it. £13 billion in record levels of debt. 22 of the 26 major projects are currently delayed or canceled. 22 out of 26 major projects delayed or canceled. In the private sector, that person would have been fired at 4 projects out of 26 delayed or canceled. And yet this one is currently in office and wants to stay in office for 3 more years while he fails on 70, 80, 90% of his projects. It's unacceptable. And you can see this next headline, and I'll read it out for you. Mayor Sadiq Khan announces £110 million in police cuts. Can you imagine that? £110 million in police cuts. And let me talk a little bit about what that headline means. And this time, when crime is soaring, when the mayor just recorded his 100th teenage murder on his watch, when we're seeing teenage knife crime and stabbings at all-time highs, he has decided to defund the police by £110 million. Do you know that is the equivalent of 1,861 full-time salaried police officers? Imagine an additional 2,000 officers on the streets. That could be happening right now, and we could see those crime statistics going down, but it's not happening. He chooses instead to defund the police. But it gets worse. Let's look at what he's done for some of his green initiatives. And you can see this headline here, and it pretty much speaks for itself. Sadiq Khan criticized for backtracking on pledge for London Public Energy Company. And the truth is that he has failed on his green spending initiatives. And that article goes on to say that fewer than 4,000 London households have signed up to Sadiq Khan's green energy company that he set up this year for £3.2 million. Just another £3 million for your mayor. $1.5 million for politically campaign fireworks, another $1 million for luxury flights, another $1 million for his PR campaign, another $3 million on his failed green initiatives. This is how he spends your taxpayer money. Think of that. Someone who doesn't even think much about $1 million here, $1 million there. That could be used right now for the citizens of London. It's hard to actually believe, but it gets worse. And this is an article that was published by the Fire Brigades Union themselves. And you can see it here, and I'll read it out. And it says this: the Fire Brigade Union condemns unthinkable £25 million cut to the London Fire Brigade. And this is a highly respected union here in London, the Fire Brigade Union. And this article goes on to say that, quote, the Fire Brigade Union has vowed to fight the unthinkable proposals to cut the budget for the London Fire Brigade by £25 million as part of the Mayor of London's plans. And they go on to say they have condemned the plans, and they have called on Sadiq Khan to live up to his promise to protect frontline services. And we see this all the time. We see how he keeps talking about protecting our services and protecting our NHS. And what does he do in the background? He defunds them. And the article finishes by saying, quote, as Mayor of London, Boris Johnson delivered the biggest cuts in history to the London Fire Brigade. The London Fire Brigade says any further cuts to services will be dangerous to the public. And the truth is the two-party system has always done this to you. Whether it's Boris or whether it's Sadiq, they always find a way to run up debt for the TfL, to defund our essential services, and then they give you another choice after 4 years and you get the other guys. And then you get the other guys, and you get the other guys. At the same time, it's the same agenda every single time. That's why we need new voices and an independent voice. And I just want to say at this moment, to consider defunding the London Fire Brigade. When you look at the history of what's happened here in London, including the Grenfell tragedy 3 years ago, to even think about defunding the London Fire Brigade at a time when we could need them at a moment's notice, when there is so much work to being done to protecting some of our housing, it's unthinkable. And yet that's what our current mayor of London is doing. But it gets even worse. And you can see this final headline I have here, and I'll read it out for you. Sadiq Khan fails to build any social housing in his year as mayor. And this is something I've done an entire separate video about how he has failed to build the affordable housing that he promised. But in 2018, the government gave Sadiq Khan £1.8 billion to build affordable housing. How many has he built? I haven't seen any. Where has the money gone? I have no idea. Yet another example of how our current mayor doesn't know how to manage a major remit for the mayor. And it's unacceptable. You put this man in office so he could run the police, so he could run Transport for London, so he could run the fire brigade, so he could build housing for this city. And he has done none of it. He's caused it all to be defunded and going bankrupt. But why should we expect a man like this to be able to do this? He has no business experience. He's never shown any leadership. He's never done any deals. He's never worked with the private sector. So why should we expect him to do this? And I want to play a video for you right now. And this is a short excerpt from one of my previous Real Deals where I went into depth on the exact failures of Transport for London, the billions of pounds of debt being racked up. I go into detail about his fare increases. Again, I have more policy videos and detailed data analysis of this mayor than any candidate in history. And you can find it all on our website. You can find it all on my YouTube platforms. And I want to play this video for you now. And it's me highlighting the fact that when it comes to the current mayor, he has no experience in economics. He has no experience in finance. He has no experience in deal making. He has no experience in business. He has no experience in entrepreneurship. And he has no experience in the real world where I live, where I have been for the past 30 years, working in industries as varied from technology to startups, to engineering, to aerospace, to finance. I have been in these businesses and industries. I understand them. And one thing I do understand is you don't run them in a fiscally irresponsible manner. You make sure that budgets are hit, and you make sure that people are held accountable. And that's very, very important.